What's the cringiest way you've seen someone demonstrate a lack of self-awareness? I have a very close and dear friend whom I adore with all my heart. She's intelligent, warm, funny and kind. Just an incredible human being. That being said, she has regular psychic readings. She will then live her life according to what the psychic has told her, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason I say psychic is because I've been to several of these with her. I'm interested and it can do no harm. She tells me she gives nothing away, but the first thing she does is tell them what she wants to know, why she wants to know it, how she's got to this point and what she'd like moving forward. I told them my name and got told my pet needed to go to the vet once. Oh, and one told me off the back of a horrendously abusive relationship that my ex was a delight and we should get back together. She meant get back together so you can light him on fire. I have zero interest in having kids. I was told by a tarot reader that I love the idea of a big family and want to have many kids to spread my love. I kept nodding in agreement and she took it as confirmation and then went down that path the rest of the reading. The economics professor who last year penned an op-ed about replacing public libraries with Amazon. I personally can't stand the majority of professional economists. There are some people like Paul Krugman who are alright, but a large portion of the field seems to be dedicated to legitimizing dicking people over. Like if you could do a PhD in Ayn Rand. Well, hear me out here. What if there was a place where you rented books? Not like a bookstore where you buy them and keep them, but like a Netflix for books, where you can take them back and get different books when you're done reading them. Could be a gamma changer, man. That sounds fine, but I never seem to have cash on me when I want a book. Maybe the government could take a tiny amount of money out of each paycheck I receive, and then I'd be covered for any books I wanted to rent from the store nearest to me. And maybe there could be someone on hand to help, trained to find the right book for any given situation. Oh man, that would be amazing. I have a friend who is extremely susceptible to pop psychology articles on the internet. If she's seen some article on her Facebook feed about being a hypersensitive person or an introverted extrovert, it'll be all you hear about for the next few weeks, and she'll give her unqualified self-diagnosis to anyone who will listen. She'll start accentuating those traits, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's especially irritating, because in psychology it's pretty well known that psychological self-assessment is extremely invalid, and that people are way worse at knowing themselves than they think. Speaking of Facebook feeds and legitimacy, I had a coworker who said he took a test on there that would match him with his soulmate through his friends list. He was so surprised it matched him with his brother and there was no hint of irony in his response. I found the last bit of your post interesting. Point why company has us do self-assessment tests and I always feel like I put down stuff that I would rather be instead of the traits I actually am. I speak 22 languages and I have completed every Duolingo branch. Basically he knows how to say I eat the apple, they eat apples, and good morning in a few languages. This reminds me of an Uber driver I had once. He thought of himself as a polyglot, even though he wasn't one. He talked the whole way to the airport about how easily he learns languages, and how native speakers are always super impressed by his pronunciation. He really emphasized this, that his pronunciation is always amazing, and he can perfectly emulate any accent. Well, he was kind enough to pronounce random words for me in French, Arabic, German, and other languages. He had a super heavy American accent, but insisted it was that of a native's. I speak French. He didn't know this and all I could do was cringe for him. He does this to all of his passengers. There are many Arabic speakers where I live, so I feel bad for them. It was a long 15 minutes. My BF's sister-in-law. I've been with my BF for over a year and a half. The first time I met her was at their wedding. BF's family loved me at first sight, and I was invited to their wedding after dating for 2 weeks lol. So she's not on her best behavior. Kinda seems ingenious. I figure it is stress from the wedding. But she made a couple of comments that didn't click in my head. Next time I see her, his sister's wedding. The photographer is lining up the family to take our picture. There's like 20 people, and she asks them to take a picture of her and her husband. The photographer tells her it's not a good time, as they're lining up a large shot. I mean, we are all waiting for one picture. She gets huffy saying it's only one picture of them, and the photographer is not really doing anything anyways. She didn't apologize or anything. She's made more comments since, and it's very obvious his entire family dislikes her BC of it. My friend is a prime example of a person who is incredibly privileged, but she is not aware of this at all. Examples: telling me she is more independent because she has her own house and car, but her father bought her both of those, says her studies are so hard, and if she studied an easy course like mine, she would have time for a part-time job too. She has never had a job in her life. She is studying an interior design course at a community college, and she is trying to tell me that my Master of Laws is easy compared to her course, and that's why I had time to have a part-time job after I break up with someone, and I'm feeling sad. She tries to make it seem like her life was so much harder by saying she experienced a broken heart like 10 times, but she never experienced a pregnancy alone like I did, and she knows this. Being like him so broke, her father literally pays for everything, and she is almost 25. My friend, who prided herself on her empathy and listening skills, was the very definition of privilege. I don't use the word that often, but her family was insanely rich, and she grew up with nothing out of her reach. She took to responding to me if I was going through a rough patch by either comparing her laughable experiences to mine, or ignoring me entirely and going, "Here's a drawing I did at work," because she worked for her older sister and basically did nothing all day. She also said she was going to be a famous comic artist, and her blockbuster idea was yet another nuclear apocalypse idea with flat characters and predictable plot. Also, her style was objectively awful, and she legit drew her main character non-white like a monkey. I withheld comment on that. Maybe it would have been the right thing to point it out, but I kinda hope it gets her beaten up someday. Never change. Reddit. I was driving a forklift in an area open to the public. I'm basically in a narrow hallway about as wide as my forklift is long, and have to spin the forklift around to grab the next pallet. I check my surroundings and start to spin the forklift. As I reach the point where I'm basically touching the wall with my back end, a woman pops around the corner and decides to basically jump through the shrinking gap. Seeing movement, I immediately stop, saving her from being a smear on the wall, and tell her how close she was to being hit. She says, "Well, I wasn't hit." I told her she's welcome. Don't think she got it. This is like telling a 5-year-old kid not to climb on the bookshelf. If they did it once and didn't get hurt, they think they can't get hurt. It's the same reasoning with drunk distracted driving. They do it a few times with no issue, and that proves to them that they are the exception. I work with a highly intelligent, but socially inept, gentleman who constantly makes me uncomfortable with his random remarks, commentary, and invasive lingering. I'm a school counselor, and the policy is, when my door is closed, you do not enter unless you knock beforehand. I was on the phone with my deployed husband in Afghanistan, letting him know his aunt had suddenly passed away. I was crying and red-faced and sniffling because the conversation was quite emotional. I happened to glance up, and this colleague is just standing there staring at me. He said, "I knocked but you didn't respond, and I need a stapler." I'm still looking at him, completely dumbfounded, as he walks to my desk, takes my stapler, and then proceeds to leave. He closes the door, then immediately opens it again and says, "I like the new smell of your air freshener," and leaves. A woman at my local coffee shop ordered a drink which was served in a paper to-go cup. She proceeded to berate the staff for not offering her a for-here mug, and explained to them how horrible that was for the environment. She then demanded a mug, and poured her coffee into the mug, and threw away the to-go cup. You're not a real barista until someone's done this to you. It's a rite of passage, and sets off the timer in your head until you eventually quit. I thought this was a real coffee shop. Yup. Been there. I mean, it actually makes some sense. The disposable cup was already wasted, so it had to be thrown away at some point in the proper recycling bin, of course. And fighting pollution is kinda important. So maybe her methods weren't great, but it definitely makes sense. You can argue that washing the mug wastes a bit of water, but come on. I have a coworker who shares details of her Crohn's disease at every monthly sales meeting. How can someone not know that they are making an entire room full of people uncomfortable? and that in a professional setting, personal health details shouldn't be shared. Ever. Anything beyond, "Oh, my allergies are killing me today," as a preemptive apology for untimely sneeze, is all anyone wants to hear. I say sorry I'm dying, and continue on without another word on the matter. I have a coworker who does the same thing but in front of customers. We are bartenders, and one day she was telling me all about this sore on her lip, and how it compared to other sores she's had on her lips. Luckily my manager was standing right there and literally pulled her in the back, and I guess, told her it was inappropriate. Solution: tell her. Is that too much trouble? My mother and I were out walking, and we came across an older couple we knew from the local church. Their eldest son had died the previous year from an inoperable brain tumor and their younger son just moved out for university. Mum starts with, "Must be nice to have the house to yourself. More time for local church." Conversation devolves from there. She ignores all hints to drop the subject, including the mother stating they hadn't been back to the church since their son died. The couple were obviously horrified. I couldn't end the convo quick enough. Afterwards, my mother told me I was just being immature and had no conception of what polite adult conversation was like. I physically recoiled at this. I always feel like I don't know what to say when somebody has a loss like that, but must be nice to have the house to yourself has never crossed my mind as an option. Dude took multiple photos of the Declaration of Independence using flash photography, all while people yelled at him to stop. Other than the array of signs, you are advised multiple times to not use flash. They even have a special room to test if your camera is accidentally on flash. His response was just to listlessly stare at the workers and walk away. The sheer mixture of obliviousness and entitlement in his face made me momentarily lose faith in the idea of democracy while standing in the National Archive. I understand that it's a very delicate historical document that is 243 years old and serves as an iconic and storied treasure for a country of 300 million people, most of which follow the no flash rule. But what about my photos? Can the flash hurt the document? Or is there another reason not to use it?